So one of the segments that's going to be a recurring little theme on this podcast is going to be the BA coaches breakdown. During this off season here, for the next few weeks, I'm going to be doing it by position group. During the season, we're going to do the BA coaches breakdown with game film. Once we get closer to the season, when I do like my whole offensive and defensive preview, I'll do some game film breakdown. But right now, I'm not going to do that. Today, we're going to be previewing kind of some of my thoughts on the offensive line unit. That's the big one today. Overall, I feel really good about this group. This is one of the groups that I feel really confident with, which is kind of crazy to think over the last few years. I say we have two guys that are 100% starters. I think we got two guys that are probable starters, but I think that right guard spot I think it could be open, or I mean, one of the guard spots. But overall, Donovan Raiola has done a really good job with his room and really good job with this group. I really think so. This unit took a huge step forward in 2023, and we do have a lot of guys with returning starters, and we have like a lot of guys that are just returning, getting a lot of playing time. So I feel good about that. It's crazy to think how bad this unit was in 2022, Frost last year, and how much of a step forward they took last year. And I have full confidence with the returning guys we have. We're going to also be taking a really big step forward again this year. Biggest thing we got to improve on, and this isn't all on the offensive line, this is just an overall offensive thing. We got to get touchdowns on the board, right? Touchdowns win games, and I feel that's a thing at high school level, college level, and in the NFL. It's just a football thing. Touchdowns win game. I'll do a bigger, like I said, film breakdown closer to the season, but I do expect a lot of outside zone again this year. I listening to some of the things Rules talked about, I expect some 49er style wide zone. I think that could be a big thing. But I do expect quite a bit of variety again from them in the run schemes. Nebraska's had a big variety in their run schemes the last few years, and that's good. The counter play was one of our best plays last season. I expect some more power looks as well. But our counter look, if you go to the Purdue game, I want to say it was late third quarter or early fourth quarter. They had the game sealing touch. I could be wrong on the time. It's been a while since I went back and watched that game. We had a counter look right there. I think it was our last touchdown of the game that was just so beautifully ran. It was textbook, and it was a nice big touchdown. So I expect counter to be one of our best plays. In the run game, some of our duo gap scheme stuff didn't look very bad. Same with our inside zone, and we ran some split zone in the spring game. But overall, something I watched, one of my notes I had from every game last season, and one of the biggest things I noticed in the spring game is our offensive line has got to do a better job getting to the second level. A lot of times the mic just honestly didn't even really get touched, and that can be a problem. I noticed that in the spring game a bit, and just getting to the second level, especially. I mean, I know it was just a spring game, but I felt like that was something that I was wanting to see more when I went back and watched it a few times. I felt like our uncovered guards on some of those zone plays weren't getting to the next level. Like there was a couple of them where they did really good double team, and then when it was time to get to that next level, they took a couple steps and they either took a bad angle and whiffed on him, or sometimes I know it was a spring game, so it's hard to judge too much, but they take that couple steps and then just not do anything. So we can get to the second level. I feel really good about this unit. Overall, like I said, I do feel really good about our offensive line. It's crazy to think. I think it might be one of the strongest suits of our team just because of how deep we are. Deep as in we have a lot of guys there. And this season, the offensive line has to be really good this season. We got to protect Raiola. But I really do think that next year, 2025, we're going to have a lot of open spots. So it'd be good if we have a good solid unit this year to build off of. Something that I really liked from our offensive line last year was our red zone scoring was pretty good. Once we actually got down there, 46th in yards per rushing attempt isn't bad in rushing at all. I can live with that. I think if we stay there, our rushing attack wasn't too bad last year. 28th in penalties per game. That's top percentage in the country. So I feel good with that. If we can run the ball as good as we did last year, I think we'll be fine. But the biggest thing we need to improve on right now is protecting Dylan Raiola. If we can protect him well, especially from the tackle spots, if we can protect him, I think Raiola is going to flourish. I have 100% faith in Dylan Raiola. My biggest worry for him, I think the only reason he doesn't come in and shine right away and be the best freshman quarterback in the country is if our offensive line lets him down. If we can protect him, I think he'll be the best freshman in the country next year, hands down. That's just where I think. Things we need to improve from last year, and this isn't all on the offensive line, but our third down needs to get better. We're about middle of the pack in the country at about 37%. And that wasn't all on them. That was a lot on our terrible quarterback play last year. But if we get to the mid to high 40s, we'll be really good. And we'll be a solid offense. We can get that third down percentage. And honestly, although our quarterback play was tremendous, or was, I don't know why I said tremendous. Our quarterback play was terrible last year. Like a lot of that, some of that comes from not protecting them on the edge at all. They were getting killed. We're 92nd in sacks per game. We can't be letting Dylan Raiola get killed like that. And we were 115th out of 134. I believe it was 134 in scoring touchdowns. That has to change. We can't be 115th. Like I said, I think what was it, 3-4 games we lost 13-10 last year. If one of those field goals becomes a touchdown, we win. We're going bowling, right? We got to score touchdowns. That's the biggest thing. I think our defense is going to be fine. But I'll go through some of my who I kind of think is going to be part of our projected lineup for this coming up year. Teddy Prohaska, I think he'll be our starting left tackle. He played 381 snaps last year, and Pro Football Focus graded him at a 66.9. I know Pro Football Focus isn't like the greatest thing in the world, but they do have a lot of dedicated people to the player grade. So I'm kind of looking at some of that today. I pray to God Teddy can stay healthy. He has such a big body and he can be such a great, powerful player, but he's got to stay healthy. He's dealt with injuries ever since he got to Lincoln. If he can stay healthy and big and progress, he will be it. How great would it be to have a stable left tackle? How fantastic would that be? He came into spring this year about 15-ish pounds lighter, which personally I really like because he's a really big guy. And the biggest thing we need from him is to be agile and better at pass blocking. So I think that would be great for him. I like him coming in a little bit lighter. And if Donovan Raiola can keep him going the way he's been progressing, guys, I think he'll be good. Who I think is going to start at left guard, I think there's 3-4 guys competing for our 2 guard spots. Who I project to be at our left guard spot is Justin Evans Jenkins. He played 387 snaps last year, and he was graded about 61.3. He played in all 12 games, and he had some good games, especially in the run game. I think he's a probable starter based off the experience he had, but I wouldn't say he's 100% because I think a lot of our guard spots comes down to how does this happen in the fall? How does fall camp come around? If he has a decent fall camp, I think he'll be the left guard starter. But if he sucks it up, I think we have some other guys that can step up in there. At center, I'd say 100% starter is Ben Scott. I am so goddamn happy he's back. He's back in Lincoln. He's my 100% starter. He is a much needed staple at the offensive line at center. He played 743 snaps and was graded at 63.8. He certainly has the toughness and grit we want from a lineman, and especially a center. Like, hopefully we can get a little bit better at the penalties, right? I feel like some of that he was a little bit, some of that grittiness and toughness caused some penalties, but I think he is poised to have a huge season and be an anchor on the offensive line. That center position, having a really good center is so important for the offensive line unit. And I'm hoping he can compete to get some Big Ten honors this season. I think he's going to be a really good center. It's hard to really talk about him and Benhart because like they're 100% starters. There's not really much to look for other than just don't suck, right? Who I think is going to start at right guard is newcomer to Lincoln, Micah Mazakua. I could be pronouncing that wrong. Okay, so I'm going to call him Micah so I'm not completely disrespecting because it irritates me when people pronounce my name wrong all the time. But hey, I'm going to do better at correcting people on that. Yeah, he's a new face in Lincoln. He's coming from Florida. He started 11 games at Florida. The year before, 22, and he was at Baylor. He was the second highest rated guard in the Big 12. I think he played in all but one game there. So he's a solid player. He's played at Baylor and Florida. Those are big name places. He only has 1 year eligibility left. So I do expect him to contribute right away. That's why I think he'll be our starting right guard. I think, like I said, I think both those guard spots are up for grabs right now. But I think Micah's going to start. Like I said, he was 2 years ago, he was the second highest rated guard in the Big 12. Things didn't really work out at Florida, but he still did decent there. So I expect him to contribute. The coaches have kind of challenged him a bit in the spring. But I think I think part of this is to get him to really show up fired up. I don't think he's really sucking. I mean, again, I don't know. I'm not at spring practice, but I think they're going to try and get him with a chip on his shoulder coming into fall camp. And I think he's going to shine. The biggest reason I think he's going to start over some of these other guys is just because I feel like his experience at playing at a Baylor and playing at a SEC school like Florida will definitely help him. He knows what it takes to play in big games, and Nebraska is obviously a big school. My hope is he starts at right guard. I'm very excited for him to be here in Lincoln. Bryce Benhart is probably our best offensive lineman. He was our best rated offensive lineman at 70.3 by Pro Football Focus. I'd say he is our other 100% starter. He's gonna be in a great spot to go earn some Big Ten honors. Again, hard to talk about some of these guys that are really good. It's like, hey, these are the guys. Yeah, I think he's going to be great. I'm excited to have him back. I'm so glad he's staying in Lincoln. Some of the guys that I think will still be in the rotation, especially if, I mean, we all know Nebraska has a bad history of having some injuries, especially at that O-line position. Turner Cochran's going to come back from an injury. I think he's okay. I think maybe they shift him to inside to compete to one of the guard spots. He was getting consistently beat at tackle. He was getting, especially pass rush wise, he was getting destroyed. I think that contributed to some of our bad quarterback play. But I think he might shift inside. I don't see him being a starter, but he's another guy in there. Henry Latovsky is a guy that has all the tools to start at guard, but he hasn't just seemed to be able to put them all together into order to get some starts. He seems like a really talented guy, and I think he has all the tools. So if we get in a pinch or get some injuries, I'm not mad about him going in there. But I do think the reason I put Micah ahead of him is just because of the experience at the big schools, and he hasn't just been getting completely beat like Latovsky has. But hey, again, if there's a situation where he needs to go in the game and play, I feel confident with him. The one player that I want to throw out here though for you guys that I think could be a little bit of a dark horse to maybe get some playing time. Grant Brix from Iowa, right? He's the top rated player out of Iowa. He was the number 2 offensive lineman in the country. I think he's a guy, the coaching staff seems really excited about him. And of course, you're always like, yeah, of course they're excited about him. Well, they recruited him, right? But I legitimately think they're excited about this guy. Just kind of the vibes that I've gotten from the staff. What I'm excited to see how he does. One of the things I'm excited for when I go up to visit fall practice here in August, I think I'll be up there the first week of August. One of the things I'm most excited about is to see how he does. He might be a guy that sneaks in some time this year, especially if the guard spots aren't getting it done or what. I think he's a guy that injuries pop up. I think he could get in there. He's a sneaky guy. I think he's a dark horse. Everyone's kind of looking at him as probably playing and starting his sophomore year. Look out. I think he could probably get some playing time this year. But yeah, that's kind of what I had for the O-line. Just kind of want to throw some thoughts out there. Who I have as the starter. I'd like to know what some of you guys think about that. And yeah, like I said, I feel really confident with this group. I think for the first time in a few years, this is one of Nebraska's strong suits, is having a good offensive lineman. We bring a lot of guys back that have playing time. Again, we keep Raiola healthy. We don't get him sacked. I think he is going to shine, and I think we're in a really good spot. I really do. I think we're in a good spot with our offensive line. Did you enjoy that clip from the BA Coaches Show? Well, if you did, give us a like or a follow, subscribe, however you're watching this. Go check us out on all social media pages at the BA Coaches Show. We're talking all things Husker sports all the time. So check it out. Check out our podcast, check out our live streams, and go Big Red.